Thank you so much for joining us. This is lovely being you. You know, growing up, excuse me, my younger siblings went to a Christian school. And at this school, you know, they would do different things. They would teach them different things, and they would come home and talk about it. You know, I always wanted to hear what was going on at this school, you know, because it was a spiritual school, and I wanted to know if they were actually giving certain enlightenment. So I remember one day they came home and they said, they started reiterating a video that they'd watched. You've been left behind. And they were talking about how they showed, you know, the sadness of what happens to people who don't do the right thing, and how, you know, they might have to go to a place that they didn't want to go to based upon the decisions that they made. And although, you know, we laughed because of the way in which certain things were done, you know, I can't help but wonder. Sometimes people will go through certain experiences and God will be teaching them different lessons. Like even at school, even though we may have laughed, it was still a lesson within a lesson. What we reap, we sow. What we do to others, it lands differently. Because as we become, you know, as we get older, we realize that there is some truth to the madness. You want to make sure that, I remember, let me go back. My spiritual advisor used to tell me to keep your thoughts clean. Make sure that you're thinking on a higher vibration. And I used to always think he probably was reading my mind, so I had to make sure that my thoughts were clean when I was, you know, in the area where all of us were eating and watching videos and talking and reading, you know, God's word. And when we left there, I had to try to still keep that up. A lot of people think on a lower level. You know, a woman will go by and a man will be like, sound effects. His mind has gone straight to another area. Now, when you're married, you think of your wife, the wife thinks of the husband. You know, I remember one time him saying, my spiritual advisor that is, that, you know, we are here to do a job. And in some cases I couldn't understand it, because if we're here to do the job of having children, he was saying basically your focus should always be, you know, pristine. Even if you're married or whatever, you have to still remember that you are here to do a job. You can't lose focus of that. Yes, you're going to have your family. Yes, you're going to have, you know, different ups and downs in your family. But along with that family, you have to remember that you did sign up for a job. We all have, you know, some people will realize early on if they want to be a doctor. You know, I went to college and I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. But I liked television, so, you know, I ended up working in mass media for a period of time. But I didn't like the way how they cut throat, like they would do things against people to get a position, and that was a very ugly thing for me. So I said, you know, maybe this is not for me. Now, what I really liked is I liked teaching. I liked working with students, because I realized that somebody had to try to set a good example. Not only a good example, but someone had to listen. I had to do a lot of listening, because I'm going to tell you, children, when they are trying to explain certain things to you and you don't pick it up, or you don't really listen, things can get out of hand really fast, because they'll say, well, why'd you do that? I told you I was going to do that. They're innocent, and you want to set a good example for them. If you had a child who was 3 years old, who was walking beside you every step of the way, you would make better choices, because you don't want to plant bad seeds with that child. So if that's the case, then it would be easier for your thoughts to be higher vibrational as well. You know, our children look up to us. You don't want to set a bad example, especially because they remember everything too. You know, I was one of those children who asked a lot of questions. They didn't like me being around. And they didn't like my brother being around either, because my older brother, he could take things apart and put them back together. And the minute they saw their things being taken apart, they assumed he was a bad kid. No, he was very smart. But no one invested in him. You see, when we invest in things that are not honest, our investment might not be so good. Let's say you invest in going to the store and stealing something. It's not a good investment. You know good and well there's cameras, you're going to go to jail. But if you invest in a child, you plant good seedlings in a child, and those seedlings turn into a plant, and that plant grows into a tree. People can eat off of that tree. You have to look at your children that way. If you invest in them, so much can grow. My brother, when I tell you he took a television apart as a child and put that thing back together, I don't even know if he remembers half of the stuff. The one thing that stuck out in his mind was that nobody wanted him around. And that's a very painful feeling for a child to have. And that happened because they didn't want their things broken, but what they didn't realize is, like my grandfather buying that television from his friend. He bought a used television. My brother put that television back together. It worked better than when he bought it from Roscoe or whatever the old man's name was. We got to look at how we are raising our children. We have to look at how we are planting those seedlings. We have to look at what it is they're picking up from even the people around them. That's the reason why the learning starts at home. The learning doesn't start at school. It starts at home. You can give them the basics, and they need to learn from you, because right now there are fewer role models. Michelle Obama is a great role model. Barack Obama is a great role model, but they're not living in their house. They're not going to be as direct. So when children are around, you need to make sure that you're planting certain seeds. You know, my uncle used to come up, my mother's brother, and he used to come into town. And when he came into town, he'd always pass, little gems. He'd teach you here, teach you little things. He'd play the guitar, he'd talk. He wore his hat, and he'd put his hat on you, make you feel like, like you were very special. And every night, he'd give us little coins so we could run to the store and get some icy or something. He was a very good role model to us. Now, of course, my mother said later on that there were certain things, she was basically trying to make him an example for my brother so that they didn't make the same mistakes. But that came later. And even if it came later, the examples were already set. The seeds were planted. We all have role models right here with us. We need to make sure that while we're making those decisions and being those role models, that we are keeping in mind that these children need us. Love's in need of help, like the song Stevie Wonder sings, and the one I spat off the other day. I didn't do such a great job. Sorry, Stevie Wonder. But either way, let us make sure that we're becoming more conscious of those around us. And when children are present, let us make sure that we are trying to invest in them and not pull them down. All right? Thank you so much for joining us. This is Lovely Being You, and it is a beautiful thing. You being you. Give yourself a hug.